The early life of Vlad Dracula, the man who would one day be remembered as Vlad Tepes, or more famously, Vlad the Impaler, was not born a monster. He was born into a world of blood, betrayal, and survival. His story begins not with darkness, but with the fragile light of a child born into one of Europe's most volatile regions, a land caught between empires, religions, and ambitions. To understand Vlad's cruelty, we must first understand the world into which he was born. A birth in blood and oaths. Vlad was born in 1431 in the Transylvanian town of Sighișoara, a settlement nestled deep in the Carpathian Mountains. At the time, Transylvania was part of the Kingdom of Hungary, but it was also fiercely contested land, forever shifting between Hungarian, Ottoman, and local Wallachian control. The year of Vlad's birth is also significant for another reason. It was the same year his father was invested into the Order of the Dragon, a knightly order founded to defend Christendom against the Ottomans. From this order came his father's name, Dracul, meaning the dragon. And so, by birth, young Vlad carried a destiny. He was the son of the dragon, but as history would show, he would grow to become something even more terrifying. Dracula, the son of the dragon. Childhood in a land of shadows. Vlad's earliest years were spent not in luxury, but in an atmosphere of constant danger. The Carpathian landscape was rugged, dotted with fortresses, forests, and villages that lived in fear of raiders. It was a land where enemies could strike from any direction. Hungarians seeking control, Ottomans demanding tribute, or rival nobles vying for the throne of Wallachia. His family itself was marked by betrayal and shifting loyalties. Vlad II Dracul often switched allegiance between Hungary and the Ottomans, sometimes fighting for one side, sometimes for the other. For the young Vlad, this meant growing up in a house where loyalty was a fragile thing and treachery lurked everywhere. From an early age, he would have been taught the arts of survival, riding, hunting, and most importantly, the skills of war. Noble children in Wallachia were not raised in innocence. They were trained from the start to rule and, if necessary, to kill. The oath to the Ottomans. In 1442, when Vlad was around 11 years old, his father faced a crisis. The Ottoman Sultan Murad II demanded loyalty, and to prove his faithfulness, Vlad II Dracul was forced to give up two of his sons as hostages. Those sons were Vlad and his younger brother, Radu. And so began one of the most defining experiences of Vlad's life, his childhood as a prisoner in the Ottoman court. It was not a prison in the traditional sense. The boys were treated as noble hostages, kept in relative comfort and given an education. They learned languages, strategy, mathematics, and literature. Most importantly, they studied under the Ottomans' finest military minds. Vlad would have learned the art of siege warfare, the discipline of the janissaries, and the ruthless tactics of the Sultan's generals. But make no mistake, they were still hostages. Their lives were bargaining chips, and they were reminded daily that their father's loyalty determined their safety. At any moment, should Vlad II betray the Sultan, his sons could be blinded, mutilated, or executed. Vlad and Radu, brothers divided. It was during this time that a deep division grew between Vlad and his younger brother Radu. Radu, charming, handsome, and adaptable, thrived in the Ottoman court. He won favor with the Sultan and grew comfortable with Ottoman culture. In time, he even became known as Radu cel Frumos, or Radu the Handsome. Vlad, however, was different. Stubborn, proud, and unyielding, he hated captivity. He resisted Ottoman influence, clashing with his captors and resenting their control. While Radu bent, Vlad refused to break. This contrast between the brothers would echo through their lives. Radu would eventually become an ally of the Ottomans, supported by them as a ruler of Wallachia. Vlad, on the other hand, would emerge as one of their fiercest enemies, using the very skills they had taught him to wage a brutal war against them. Lessons in fear and power. The Ottoman court was ruthless, and Vlad absorbed its lessons. He saw how the Sultan maintained control through intimidation and absolute authority. Public executions, displays of cruelty, and the crushing of dissent were not just punishments, they were tools of power. It is here many historians believe that the seeds of Vlad's later reputation were planted. He learned that fear was a weapon, perhaps the most effective weapon of all. If subjects feared their ruler more than their enemies, they would obey. If enemies feared the ruler more than death itself, they would hesitate to attack. For a boy stripped of freedom, surrounded by threats, fear became not just a concept, but a survival instinct. Return to a broken home. In 1447, tragedy struck. Vlad II Dracula was betrayed by Wallachian nobles and murdered. His elder brother Mircea was captured and brutally blinded with red-hot irons before being buried alive. News of this horror reached young Vlad and Radu in Ottoman captivity. For Vlad, the effect was permanent. He learned that trust was meaningless, mercy was weakness, and survival required ruthlessness. The betrayal and murder of his father and brother hardened his heart beyond repair. Soon after, the Ottomans released Vlad, seeing in him a potential puppet to place on Wallachia's throne. But he would not be their pawn. Instead, he returned with a burning desire for vengeance, against the nobles who had betrayed his family, against his rivals, and against anyone who would threaten his rule. A boy shaped into a tyrant. By the time Vlad returned to Wallachia as a teenager, he was no longer the child born in Transylvania. He was a young man shaped by war, captivity, and betrayal. He had seen firsthand how power was gained and lost, how fear could control armies, and how loyalty could crumble under pressure. This was the crucible in which Vlad Dracula was forged. His early life was not of innocence, it was of survival. And survival, for Vlad, meant embracing the harshest lessons of his childhood. The shadow of his name. There is a haunting irony in Vlad's early years. He was the son of the dragon, destined to protect Christendom, yet he spent much of his youth in the hands of the very empire that threatened it. He was trained by the Ottomans, yet he grew to be their nightmare. He was betrayed by nobles, yet he demanded absolute loyalty. He was denied a childhood, and in turn, he denied mercy to others. And so, the boy named Vlad Dracula stepped out of his youth, carrying not just his father's title, but a destiny forged in fire, betrayal, and blood. This was only the beginning. The horrors that would earn him the name Tepes, the Impaler, were still to come. But already the shadows of cruelty, fear, and vengeance had taken root.